Hello, Mr. Nader. How are you?
All good, all good. How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. No, but it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and we were just talking before offline, and you're mentioning that you're starting your day. You're in San Francisco right now. How are things? How's the weather over there? I know it's been a hot summer, but San Francisco tends to be very cool. How are things going on over there?
It's on and off, but it's usually quite nice. It got a little hot for a couple of days, but rather than that, can't complain. It's California, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And where in San Francisco do you live? Which neighborhood? Because I lived in San Francisco also, in the outer Richmond area for a couple of years.
Yeah, so I'm in Oakland, which is on the
Yeah,
other side of the bridge. Yeah.
even better. I actually, that was the last place I lived before I moved back to Kenya.
Nice.
So
Nice.
cool stuff. Yeah,
Thanks.
I miss Oakland. It was a fun experience. And so yeah, buddy. So really excited about what you're doing. And for me, talking to African founders and founders who are building in Africa for Africa is always exciting. The notion that you're building for Africa and not on the ground, but you're from Africa, it says a lot about the world in which you live in right now, in terms of it's a very porous world, right? You can do anything from anywhere for anyone. So
Yep.
What's that experience been like for you so far?
Has been great. I mean, the time difference is crazy. So we have been working on Money Hash for a couple of years. Like we're three co-founders. So two of us is based here in San Francisco Bay Area, and one is based in Egypt. The remaining team is across actually 7 countries. So we have people in Egypt, people in Lagos, people in Dubai, people in Johannesburg, which is really fantastic. So it is a humbling experience, just getting to know everyone, working with everyone, having such a shared mission is a very humbling thing.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And before we dive into kind of the details of that, because I definitely want to kind of talk about Money Hash and how you became what's going on with that and the idea, because I think it's a very, very much needed. It's a big problem you're solving, and very, very much needed solution. But before we dive into that, I always like to kind of find out more about you. Like I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and what stands out very clearly is very many short stints across quite a number of diverse projects and organizations, all the way from education to big tech to now founding a startup. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's quite accurate. So I actually wasn't into the startup world or the business world even at all. I graduated from engineering in 2010, and I at this time there was the Arab Spring in the Middle East, and I kind of wanted to engage politically and understand how the world works and stuff. So I went for academia. I went for grad school. I went studying research projects. So if you looked at my career, it's like jumping from one academic project to another, one research to another, and has nothing to do with startups, like working with refugees, working with economic development and R&D kind of stuff. And this all ended in 2017 because at some point I felt academic was too slow for what I want to achieve, and I wanted like a tangible impact. And I was too excited about blockchain at that time. The decentralized world was very fascinating to me. So a friend who started a startup in Tunisia was very generous to host me to build a blockchain bootcamp in Tunisia, and this was the first startup I worked in. And one startup led to another, and blockchain led to fintech, and fintech led to payments, and payments led to Money Hash, and here we are.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so. So when you tie that back, because we always somebody made this statement that I thought is very appropriate. It's easier to connect the dots backwards, right? So when you look back at when you're growing up, I guess you grew up in Egypt. Did you grow up in Cairo or?
Correct.
Okay. What was your aspirations? What did you want to be when you grew up? What were your goals? What were you trying to become?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think most kids in my age at that time was very fascinated by technology, right? Like when we all started in high school or in middle school looking at technology, this was like during Windows 95, and like this the beginning of everything for the emerging market to look at things sort of. I was doing this programming on DOS and these like very basic things when I was young, so technology was fascinating. I think going through college, you kind of do some self-explorations there. So I was kind of happy about being an engineer, being about a builder. But I had this itch for knowing that knowledge is not enough. Like I always felt like there is more that you need to learn holistically, like a big picture kind of issue. And when the Arab Spring happened as well, it was kind of very uncomfortable situation because you would see economic experts involved in the region is struggling to figure out how the region should move forward. And I'm like, if the experts can't figure it out, who will? Like, that's a very confusing position to be. Right. So this kind of initiated me shopping for knowledge, like literally thinking that like I need to go from the technology, go learn a little politics, little economics, little management. I wanted to be like a deeper generalist in the sense to be useful. That's but there wasn't like a specific dream of how I can be useful. There was how I can be ready, more of thinking.
Oh, how you can be ready. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Wow. Ready for what?
Ready for being a better expert. That was the idea. Like I was kind of frustrated at how the region was managed at that time with everything. And I thought if economic experts and political experts, all very narrow-minded on their field, all don't understand, maybe I need to build a holistic view and then see how I can contribute. Funny enough, like 10 or 9 years later, I'm contributing in financial infrastructure, which wouldn't have been an expected answer. So this is really, but yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, your life is still ahead of you. So, and what you're solving for, who knows what impacts it will have, right? The idea that it can enable entrepreneurship and payments is the lifeblood of any economy. So in some way, even if it's infrastructure, it's the impact it can have. So, connecting those dots is not too far. And you mentioned the Arab Spring a couple of times, and I remember when that kind of happened. I think it was 2009, 2010 time frame. And at the time I was in California and we were all looking at this from around the world and just wondering like, holy cow, this is a seminal moment in history.
Yeah.
Question for you there is, was it a surprise for you when it happened? How did you respond to this?
I mean, I think that's only my feeling, but I think it's mutual that everyone was kind of surprised, but at the same time it was kind of like a build up for any oppressive kind of environment to blow up at some point. Sadly enough, the journey wasn't successful to kind of restore everything, and we're kind of like back in similar situations, but the overall sentiment at that time is a younger generation and everyone contributing will have like a totally new page to kind of paint everything, which I think all the world kind of assume, underestimating how deep old politics is running across all countries there. And this is why I'm fascinated with business right now, because like, to be fully honest, business is now the only fair way to help people. You know what you're doing, you know how tangible it is, it brings jobs, it brings the economy forward, it make people move forward, and it doesn't have to be about conflict. It can be all about
Right.
prosperity together.
Right.
And I'm proud of many countries in Middle East and Africa for what they will have been doing in the last 5-10 years. As a first-time founder, I feel like very empowered in comparison to people who's doing the same journey 10 years ago, and how little of resources they had and success stories they can build upon, you know.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's very interesting because, I run a venture studio and our model is a bit different. What we do is we take college grads and we mass them into innovation entrepreneurship journey, right? There's more training, people development, even as we build projects. And I always tell our young people that what I'm really working on is this idea called 1,000 Lee Kuan Yews. I don't know if you know who, are you familiar with Lee Kuan Yew?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Lee Kuan Yew is actually the founding father of Singapore. And he came, from the independence movement, all the companies that were pre-colonial nations. He was of that generation. And he was the only one, I believe, who actually took a third world country to first world in one generation. And yeah, so fascinating human being. I believe he is the most underreported, underread, understudied personality in the 20th century for sure. And I'm reading his book right now called Third World First, as a matter of fact. And if you want to become an expert who is effective, I would definitely recommend that you pick this book up, because this is a study in terms of how you move the needle, in terms of, I think, how you're trying to think about that. So Third World First by Lee Kuan Yew, study this gentleman, my friend. And so why I tell our young people it's the ultimate goal is 1,000 Lee Kuan Yews, is because we need the kind of people who are experts who can move the needle, right? They can know how to do things and bring the right type of change in society. And I think that's maybe what you're after somehow, deep inside there. Right?
Yeah.
You want to bring,
100%.
And so maybe that book can help you. But now to more kind of prosaic matters, your startup journey. So what is Money Hash? And what problem are you guys trying to solve?
Absolutely. I mean, first, I'm very fascinated by the venture work you're doing. So part of my studies was ecosystem building. Any ecosystem, whether organic or managerial related. So every time I find the company working on being an enabler or being a small ecosystem that kind of propagates, I have like a deep appreciation to the struggles you're going through, because you gotta try to address everything in a small studio kind of thing. But in the same time, it's a really good journey to have. So like, just wanted to say that before jumping in Money Hash journey kind of thing. Money Hash actually originated as an initiative of me and a friend of mine wanted to work together and didn't know what to work on. We had kind of like frustration built up from payment related or payment industry related experience, because kind of we felt that the technology that exists in the region is not really helping businesses move forward when it comes to like accepting and moving money and all of that. And what's fascinating about startups and scale-ups in the US and Europe and stuff is you have all the tools to quickly spin up a company and start and integrate everything and put the tools, and you can be testing your product in few weeks, you can scale it in few months. Like, this speed thing is quite empowering. And you can see in the regions that most companies before the last couple of years have been successful if they are operational, if they are delivery companies or grocery companies or this or that. But like, if they are pure tech, they usually either get acquired or hit a certain ceiling of quality that they kind of can't cross in that case. So we build on a previous experience in which we knew that companies eventually get stuck in the payment space on one or two roads. They start with a payment partner, this payment partner is providing acceptance and some features and stuff. It seems great. And then at some point you want to scale to another country, you want to bring a different payment method, you want to add a different feature, and that's it. This is your ceiling. If you want to cross this ceiling, you have to do it yourself, mix multiple providers and stuff. And now 30-40% of your tech capacity need to go manage payments, which is a different product. This is not your product, you know. Or you have to, like, you know, suck it up and work with what you have, you know, work with around your partner kind of thing. So we built MoneyHash, which is, it exists in the industry of payment orchestration and revenue operation API. And what that means is we are a middleware operating system of payments. So we're not a payment company in the traditional sense that we are a licensed payment processing company that moves the money and everything. No, it's a piece of software, a really cool piece of software that if you put it in your company, it kind of take over everything payment related and becomes similar to how you deal with AWS for the cloud. If you use the MoneyHash, we are the cloud of money for you. We manage integration with the payment providers at the different markets. We manage the checkout experience, the transaction workflow, the microservices, and the different features that you need, whether subscriptions, wallet, and all of that. And we bring the reporting of all the transactions from all the countries, all the currencies, all the providers together in one place, aiming to alleviate the quality of building such a sensitive infrastructure in the region for companies there, but most importantly, to spare their hand to focus on the actual values they are trying to bring, especially for medium and scale, like and large scale companies. We want more unicorns in the region. And one of the catalysts to bring such big companies in the regions that have impact is to give them as much gross catalysts as possible. And we hope to be like one of them.
Amazing. So in terms of, comparisons or comparables, right? You mentioned the AWS of payments, and that's, if you look at the West, right? What is the example of what you guys are? Are you guys, it doesn't sound like you're Stripe. You're more than Stripe. You're not like, who are you like that is already been built out there? Are you played? Yep. You're not played. Who are you? What are you guys?
I love this question. We get it all the time, especially from investors. It's just like they wanna, because also when you're building in Africa, you always want to be compared to someone that made it already. It's kind of like we have to be following something, but we're actually not. We're starting this in the same time Europe and the US is building this around that. So I don't think there is much unicorns in that space yet, which is what's so exciting for us, because we think this is the time to start matching up speed a little bit. This is not about following an established model and try to adapt it. But payment orchestration existed for the last 5-10 years. There is companies like Zoos, Spreedly, Exopay, and there is like new ones like Primer and Gravy. These are in the US and Europe that are quite famous, growing fast. And we're kind of like the first one in Middle East and Africa, and a part of few companies that's starting to define this category in emerging markets, which is a double-edged sword in that case. It's giving us a lot of opportunity to grow and have space to experiment, and at the same time, of course, like a first timer need to learn everything and take the first hit on everything before they make it.
Yeah. And so just to kind of dig a little bit more deeper, so our audience can understand why they would use you, when they would need you, or how you actually fit into the payments ecosystem, right? So you have the Paystacks of the world, right? Which is, and then you have the payment gateways, and then you have the Flutterwaves of the world. So how do you fit into this ecosystem? When would I come to you, or who is your ideal customer, and when do they need you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, think of us as a catalyst, which means you can always figure out things without money hash, but with money hash, you're basically giving your system kind of like superpowers or unlocking things that was locked on you before. So we do believe that companies are totally fine integrating directly with Stripe, PayPal, Flutterwave, Paystack, and start building and growing. We think this growth is very limited if it doesn't have an operating system sitting in the middle, making your product lighter and faster when it comes to dealing with payments there. So MoneyHash is an upgrade for how you should be doing payment features in that sense. We do believe that the challenges we solve is more on the medium and large size companies than on the small one. In the small one, you want to move quickly. You're probably focusing on a single market. So connecting with a single payment gateway and get things up and running, unless you're really strategic about thinking about payment and want things to be built right from the beginning. But we encourage the startups to do mistakes in the beginning, like do not try to optimize for everything. So that's totally fine. But at a certain point, once you're trying to scale, which appears in a startup around Series A, suddenly you're looking at like different markets, different payment methods, how to adjust the checkout experience, how to make sure failure of payments doesn't happen. Once you are in this space, you end up doing a lot of work in-house, in which one or two of your engineers are actually keep getting payment-related features in your sprint, while you can be using MoneyHash and all of this disappears and you can experiment and grow and iterate and build. Most companies that we work with are in the tourism space, e-commerce space, fintech space, platforms or marketplaces. And as you can see from these examples, these are companies that the checkout and the payment experience has high stakes for them. And it's complicated to figure out, is it whether because it's geographically distributed or because the nature of the business is complicated. Like a marketplace, for example, you're collecting money from one side of the market to give it to another. And each side has a different payment method and different currency. And you need to manage all of that. You can do it in-house and keep building features just to manage money, or you can use MoneyHash and suddenly everything opens up by a couple of weeks work with integrating with us in the beginning, and that's it.
Amazing. Cool. So how broad is your potential operating footprint in regards to the different payment providers integrations you have? Because it's a global marketplace right now. You have PayPal, which is global. Your Stripe is global. I mean, arguably, are you beyond Middle East and Africa in terms of usability? Can somebody, how big of a problem are you solving? Is it global? Because it sounds to me like there's no reason why you should just be Middle East and Africa.
100%. We think the problem is global. We think emerging market need a different product than the rest of the world. We're talking about majorly unbanked population, so card payments is not really dominant here. Orchestration companies that are focusing on card payments and failure of card processing and subscriptions and things like that. That's how it works in most equivalent companies in US and Europe. For us, we're an emerging market-friendly infrastructure. That means we embrace cash-based methods, we embrace manual methods, we build everything around low-tech capacity in the region, so things are no-code, things are easy to build and easy to simulate. So that's our specialization. We're starting with Middle East and Africa out of passion and the specialization as well. We're from the region, we understand it, we know how to navigate it. But customers come to us and be like, okay, I just launched it with you guys in Nigeria, but we're exploring Mexico. Can you integrate there? I'll be like, sure. Like the infrastructure itself is agnostic, but our superpower is emerging markets and double superpower for Middle East and Africa for sure.
Got it. And you talked about we, right? And who's on the team, right? Who are your co-founders, and where did you guys get together?
Yeah. So Mustafa, my co-founder and CTO, is a dear friend. We worked together in a payment company for about a year. Then COVID hit, and we kind of left this company and started searching for jobs and stuff. And in the middle of that, we felt like there is something we can work on together, and we looked at our existing projects and things and started doing that. And he's a fantastic technologist. Spent his entire career. He dropped out of college and has been coding his entire life and working in startups his entire life. No corporate, no, like, it's literally like pure story of a developer focusing on building and scaling products there. And then the idea started was like, let's build an API that kind of standardize all other APIs situation. And then we suddenly realized it's going to be as big as a product, as big as AWS. And we hope it becomes as big as them business wise. So we felt we need another co-founders that can spearhead product related stuff. I'm more business strategy kind of person there. So I know Anisha through my wife. They have been to college together, and she's kind of my Silicon Valley go-to person. She's a first employee in NerdWallet and scales into multi-million-dollar business, and they exit at some point and worked in Sig Fig and stuff. So pure product, pure fintech, her entire career. So we approached her, she quit her job and joined us. I'm very humbled by the trust of both of them because they are very specialized, talented people, and I am more like out of the box kind of new founder. So for them to trust my leadership is quite humbling as well. So yeah, that's how it all came together.
Fantastic. And so you guys have been working on this for a couple of years now. Is that right?
Yeah. So the first year we stayed in beta because we wanted to kind of study everything. There's too many payment methods, too many markets. So we spent time testing and building things, because this is not like a product that you can throw it in the market and then iterate. There is a certain quality that you need to hit when you launch, given how sensitive this infrastructure is. We did that. We launched it back in March, I think, Middle East and North Africa only, and we kept Sub-Saharan Africa on beta. Then we started adding more integration in Sub-Saharan Africa, and we're launching actually in Sub-Saharan Africa soon, covering integrations in Nigeria and Kenya and South Africa and in other countries around the West and the North there.
Amazing. Very cool. So couple of years in, first year was just kind of building, beta, testing, optimizing, making sure you're not going to, because obviously payments is very sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And then, interestingly, you also raised a little bit of money in that period.
We did.
Why don't you talk about that, right? How much have you raised so far, and how did that process go? Because I looked at the article that was out to TechCrunch, and quite a number of notable early stage funds, angel networks, or who, if you see circling around an opportunity, there's something there. How much have you raised, and how did this come about? How did you attract these notables?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did a couple of fundraisings. One was to leave our jobs, basically. So we raised like 250,000 in the beginning because me and Mustafa basically had no money to start the company. So it was kind of important to get some money in the bank to pay ourselves the minimums and start working. And then after that, once we had a solid plan, we started raising our larger pre-seed round, which is the 3 million you saw the TechCrunch article on. We do believe that fundraising in the region is quite a tough game to play, because it's such a strategic decision to do in such short amount of time with so much pressure. Because first, in every single call you're taking from an investor, you're actually taking time from building and helping your customers. So it is like a chicken and egg kind of problem. And the investment process takes a lot of back and forth, takes a lot of preparing documents and trying to think about everything. And the region has a lot of investors that are quite skeptical when they approach investment. Like it's like how to find where is the problem?
What's the
Searching for
problem?
problem. Yeah. Something must be wrong. So let's take you in a 3 to 6 months journey to tell you that you're probably wrong and I will not invest in. But we were lucky because we kind of like spent our time trying to figure out who are the thoughtful partners in the regions that has been investing for a while, understanding how this works, but also have a fresh perspective on the hands-on investment in which you help your companies grow, you enable the founders, you do that. And we reached out to these investors and spoke heart to heart, connected with a bunch, and we had a strategic kind of mandate to bring as many of the small emerging funds around the region to have a representative cap table to be able to tap on their local experience across. So actually, like Nigeria has a bunch of funds. Kenya has a couple of funds. Egypt and UAE and Saudi Arabia. So like all our major markets, we have 1 or 2 funds that are really connected in this market and can help us answer questions. So this was fun to do. Was a good position to be in early on.
Amazing. How did you miss From Here Ventures?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
How did you miss From Here Ventures in your search?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'll tell you why. So I run From Here Ventures. We are early stage pre-seed and seed stage fund. We just started investing in Q2 this year. And I mean, that's why it was a trick question because you could not. When did you close your round? Was that when did you close the round?
I think it got officially closed like money-wise in November last year, but we announced it shortly before the launch. So we announced it 3 months after or something like that.
Got it. Yeah. So we were kind of just kicking off our fundraising at that point, but
I see.
But yeah, we should definitely talk because everything you're talking about is how we are architected as a fund. And so you've kind of described a little bit of your process. You are very thoughtful in terms of researching who you would like to have on your cap table, and you approached that it sounds to me like you didn't approach that as a pitch, but more as a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. We do believe that that there is no entitlement and ego here. We're not kind of like building this to be like the best business in the world, and we're gonna like redefine everything, and we're amazing founders and like all this spiel. We're just excited about building. We know what we want to build. We know our character, and we know who we want to work with. We bounce ideas together. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we will figure something out. And along this journey, we will learn. If this learning resulted in success, that's fantastic. If it didn't, we would have helped a bunch of people learn a lot about payments, and they can help other companies moving forward. So we see this in a much chill strategic position than the usual ego-driven pressure of the entrepreneur, like doing all of
scaling the mountain and
yeah.
be a unicorn. It's amazing you're saying this because it's like a breath of fresh air. You know, just yesterday we were talking to an entrepreneur, and he was insisting that they're going to be a unicorn in 3 to 5 years. First time entrepreneur, obviously, and they have 42 customers in B2B, and they're going to be a unicorn in 3 to 5 years. And I'm just like, you don't have to say that because it's not true. You shouldn't feel like you need to.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, we all aspiring to be in that position. But yeah, as long as he has the data, he's fine. If you can support it with data, you're good, man.
Yeah, amazing. So okay, so you've raised is it how much total to date?
3 million and a quarter, I think.
3.25 million, and that $250,000 was the first $250,000 you guys brought in
exactly.
to kind of keep the lights on and allow you to go down this path.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So how has the company grown since what's the current headcount? How does the team look like? I know you guys are in 7 countries and so on and so forth. What's the total headcount?
I think we're 26 right now. As you can see, we're distributed across the region. A couple of us in US and some in Europe as well, Netherlands and Germany. But majority of the team is either based in the region or originally from the region, and they live abroad kind of situation. When we launched it, it was quite an experience. We got suddenly a lot of inbound interest from companies in the region, which we didn't expect. We thought that that's a product we need to educate customers
the
to
market,
understand.
Right.
Which is still the case, but it was exciting to see some companies that was like literally waited for something for so long, and then suddenly they are sending us this request and stuff. So this got us freaked out a little bit. We weren't ready for it, so it took us like a quarter and a half to kind of tweak everything and make it like ready for being demand based. We picked a small cohort of companies and we're working with them and get them live and onboarded. So we're still kind of 50% building, 50% getting the first few customers in place, and we call them the customer love cohort. The first 25 customers to get them delighted with this experience before we think about revenue and scale and everything.
Amazing. So are you still in that mode where you have your the 25? Okay, amazing. And so it sounds you mentioned medium and large enterprises kind of is your market segment. So, and it sounds to me like they found this inbound, right? They find you online, and then but it's a conversation.
Yep.
How does your customer acquisition model work, right? Is it sales driven? Is it I can just pull your APIs and plug them into what I'm doing and hit the road? How does this work?
Well, I think the two approaches you mentioned exist, but they are different in when they happened, because it is sales driven when it comes to understanding the product and defining how it will match your payment strategy and which part of the infrastructure to start with. But then when you start, it's an easy to plug in and immediately get it off the road, and it's quite modular. So we rarely have a customer request that can't be fulfilled kind of situation. And that was the beauty of us being in beta for some time, is that we didn't compromise the infrastructure in our building in the beginning. So that's kind of how we are. We build the team. We call them internally payment strategists. Their goal is to help the company define the payment strategy on the different levels and defines their priorities, and then we pick a priorities that seem to be urgent, seem to be focused, seem to be quick win. We work on it together, and because we're a super API, if we work on one, we can work on many. So things kind of scale from there.
Amazing. It's almost like a sales solutions consultant engineer kind of team. Is that what these people are?
100%.
Okay, so classic enterprise sales, go to market, selling deep tech kind of stuff. So is that how you see your go to market motion look like? Is that how you guys are going to scale or grow?
I think we're not there yet to put mental bandwidth on the scale and grow. We're kind of figuring out the first step in the beginning. Reading about like companies like Atlassian, Zapier, Segment, which is like the companies that build kind of like similar products that has pure software identity and stuff. I think with time, once you build this reputation and category defining kind of position, you start to have an element of self-serve, an element of quickly working with the solution without needing a solution architect with you. But it's now useful to have this market entry strategy, because in addition to it being educational, which is important to our first stage of entering the market, it's also helpful for us to troubleshoot our product. So our solution architects kind of get back to the product team and engineering team with like feedback and ways to iterate and make this product much more useful. So in that case, it's a win-win.
Yeah, amazing. So you don't have any pure play sales people on the team. Everybody's a technical salesperson still. Is that how it is?
Well, we didn't really care about the background. So many of our team coming from a mix between tech or sales or both, and we kind of do internal education to get them where they need to be. So that's kind of how we thought about it in the beginning.
Yeah, and I actually I could agree with you more on that one, because my background is I was on the sales side of tech, but I was very technical in terms of the curiosity of understanding how technologies work and why they work, and just understanding technology, right? And the attitude in Silicon Valley for a long time, and probably still the same way, is there was a period where salespeople are really looked down on. They were called coin-operated idiots. There's this window where everything was software and cloud and self-serve and so on and so forth. And the founders of that vintage were very despising of salespeople. And I was like, that's such a limited view of a human being, right? Because you want somebody who is balanced, who can actually think, understands the technical side, but can also engage with customer interactions. I mean, we're not just one-trick ponies in this life, right? So I love that your team is. It doesn't matter where they come from, but they should be able to speak the language and understand what you guys are building and communicate that. That's going to be a killer team for sure. That's fantastic.
Thanks,
so talk about people and hiring and culture and that stuff, right? So how would you describe, I mean, your company culture to the extent you have one, right? It sounds to me that you guys are very, cerebral, sharp, top-notch kind of. Because those are the only people you can work with when you're building something new. It's technical. It's and they're distributed, so they gotta be like really sharp, right? What's your company culture like, and who fits into that?
I mean, it's really funny because, like, I remember when I wasn't on the founder side of things, I would really, when I hear these questions to founder and then they talk about how amazing their culture is, I would be like, you go like, come on, like you're asking the person. He definitely sees this culture as perfect. Like you need to ask the employees, kind of thing. So this is actually our culture. Like we come from a place in which we kind of it's less about founders and more about figuring out how everyone should work together, and there is a framework and there is process kind of thing. So in that case, we established, giving how remote teams work, we established a lot of transparency. We try to tell our team what's actually going on as frequent as possible. We try to kind of unify appreciation, because like in each market, compensation can be different, like treatment can be different. We try to focus on, like, you're a global citizen, you're getting global compensation that is within limits, you're getting equal understanding of the world together, we're learning kind of thing. So in that sense, so far so good. We're kind of seeing it as shaping with time. I am very surprised of how difficult this is. Like just once it started crossing a certain number of people, the fact that I'm responsible personally for people's like months to months salaries, and their well-being and everything was just like, has a lot of stress, but also felt like something really important to do and to stand for, and all of that. So that's kind of very important to us. And speaking of actually investors, we did have even an investor pledge, like a document that we wrote down what we actually care about and asked our major investors to sign it, for them to understand that, like, we wanna do this thing differently. than most companies, and we need to be aligned from the beginning, because that it would be great to kind of be on the same page. That employees doesn't need to be just a fuel for this machine, you know. So
amazing, amazing, very cool. So, how have you? Because hiring great talent is hard. You know, what has your experience been with that? And
yeah.
do you have a process? And what's your hiring process, if you have one? If you know, what's your experience with hiring, and how do you do it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we did a mix of everything. You publish things online and wait for people to apply, and in parallel to that, you try to find like talents you admire and reach out to directly and tell them I think there is a potential here. We have been quite successful in the one-on-one reaching out for talents that we like, especially on the leadership or the senior level. Given how exciting the product is, how exciting the space is, the team is exciting to work with, and so when we find the match, it gets quite easy to build this rapport. Our process is simple. We kind of do a vibe check. If things work great, we give our potential talent, whether they are headhunted or like we give them kind of a case to work on. In this case, it does two things for them, and we tell them that even in the call. It helps us see them working to kind of like align on their philosophy and how they think about stuff. But it actually helps them see if this is going to be boring for them. So they test also, like, is this exciting problem to solve, or does this just sound like everything else? So we give them like a quick case to do it, and through this case we kind of get an actual feel of like if we are working together, how it will look like. And so far, my assessment like of how this team is growing is beyond my understanding to where I am as a leader, you know. So that's really really fantastic, you know.
Amazing. So the case is something that a problem you guys have solved for a previous customer or some kind of situation. What's the spectrum of the cases? Yeah, because not everybody's customer focused. I mean, how do you have a stable of cases depending on the role? How does that work?
Oh, you mean in the hiring kind of case?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely for like if you're a product manager, you're getting definitely a totally different case than an algorithmic case in the tech and like a business development kind of aspect. So we had multiple iterations of this case, and in this case as well, it's kind of like it looks like a case, but it's actually an educational assignment, because in it we write down international peers that or competitors that they need to look at their website and kind of understand how this actually work. So we make them read some things to kind of, from these readings, what did you actually learn? What are you gonna actually do and stuff? And that unpacks a lot of like critical thinking aspects of things. So it's not a traditional case in like, here's an assignment to do it and come back. It challenges on the learning and observing kind of aspect of stuff. But yeah, startups gotta be quick, so the case has to be small. So the case has to still deal like. So it's a really tricky part to balance, but yeah, it has been really successful for us as a buffer to make sure we do not take decisions without thoughtful process in place, but it's still quick, and all our employees, whether coming from the inbound side of they applied or we reached out to them, has to go through this assessment anyway, because it's a two-way kind of assessment, because we want them also to say like, this is not for me, or not. That's the part that I think many companies miss in this equation, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's a two-way street for sure. Yep. So, fully remote company. So what are some of the benefits and drawbacks? Maybe one benefit, one drawback of fully remote.
I think I think humans in general get a lot of motivation from in-person in-person connection. And I won't say this as a blank statement, but I think everyone is in like a Zoom fatigue kind of
For sure.
position after like multiple years, you know. So
Right.
if they appreciated the in-person communication at X, it's now 10X kind of
For
thing.
sure. I'm definitely there for sure. So
Yep.
we've been remote for the last 2 years, and we're going back into office. And just today, I was actually looking at the property that we're going to be occupying. And man, I am worn out. I'm on fumes.
Yeah.
I need to feel human energy, man.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. So that's the case these days. But I think like most talent, and you're probably gonna feel that when you spend some time in the office after like multiple weeks or a couple of months into the office, you'll be like, actually, remote was quite flexible and human oriented than I thought, because it gives you more control over your time. It gives you more ability to juggle things in the way you want and define things the way you want, and it helps us work together with so many nationalities and cultures without
Yeah.
needing to build this barrier of one size fits all in one location
I know.
and all of
Yeah.
that. So we are big evangelists of remote. We think it's human. We think it's helpful. We do believe that in-person need to exist in a certain dimension every now and then as a kind of a battery charging. So we do this. We gathered the team in Egypt. We gathered the team in Dubai. I'm hoping to kind of visit Lagos and get the Africa team as well. So we kind of like always have charging
stations.
milestones. Yeah, exactly. Along the way kind of situation.
Cool. Yeah, man. I totally get that. And I guess the benefit is you have more of a reach of talent you can hire from around the world, right? You're not limited to just Cairo or Nairobi or that.
100%.
So challenges. I mean, so what has been your biggest lesson learned in this journey?
Oh, there's too many. I think I would define three. I think one on what's available for founders in the region, because what I see giving the time in the Bay Area as well, you kind of have things like Product Hunt and Hacker Rank and an active Twitter community, and like, so you actually can find so many resources to build and iterate and grow things. If you came up with an idea tomorrow, you can actually like spin out an MVP. On the other hand, in the region, I feel like there is kind of an assumption that like the founder need to do stuff and come back and report to investors, and hopefully things are working well, kind of like a more alone position in that case. So I feel like one of the biggest lessons is founders need to build this backbone early on, like who's coaching you, who's mentoring you, who are your peers that you respect. You need to frequently be talking to them with no reason. You need just to have the system frequently supporting you before it gets deep, before it gets too busy to be able to navigate this. That's on like what I learned personally, how much this connection needed to be there early on is something I didn't do well, and I think I'm working on it at the moment. I think also one of the biggest challenges for us is the product is multidimensional. So how to balance between learning and validating the business, right? So that we can't be building too much, but we can't be selling too much, because this is not a product that will just sell without having the tech in the right place. So this balance is one of the most difficult things we're doing in the company. I think we are in a good place, like framework and process wise, but it never feels enough. We always feel like something need to change here, something need to grow here, something need to be iterated in this space. So that's, I think, a challenge on all products that are that have an expectation of a bundle. if you are a CRM, if you are an applicant tracking system, if you are a payment management solution, this comes with a bag. It comes with a group of things that the customer understands. Some of them you need to change, some of them you need to keep as is, some of them you need to kind of deliver low quality, high quality. This is, I think, and this is why the region doesn't have much SaaS businesses. Is this thinking is missing. We're learning it. Everyone is learning it. Hopefully we become one of the first companies to kind of push this boundary a little bit.
Amazing. We're all breaking new ground in our different ways. So it's quite exciting. So we'll kind of, as we begin to wrap it up over here, I will ask one question and then go into a rapid fire round. So mistakes and lessons learned. And I'll ask this, what would you do different now, if anything at all? Looking back in the last couple of years or even in life and how you can connect that, what would you do different, if anything?
That's a very deep question to wrap up with. I mean, getting back to the notes I just mentioned, I think building this support and coaching and mentorship capacity in the beginning is something I would definitely put effort on early, rather than that, putting as many learning opportunities along the way, which is also related to the mentorship and coaching. So I think there is this assumption that entrepreneurs are building and flying the plane in the same time, right? And this is very true, but most of the time who's flying the plane is actually the team, not the founders. And the founders need to delegate, give ownership, give autonomy, and focus on learning and growing, so they are ready for the next challenge, kind of thing. So if I'm gonna do things differently, it's gonna be building the support system early on and make sure we have a community of mentors and coaches. We actually do have like a lot of angels networks that we work with that they are quite fascinating. So now, like, I'm unpacking this amazing potential we had all the time, but it was just like hidden with how busy I am and everyone is with everything. And I can see it's quite fascinating, the potential from unlocking such a network. So I highly encourage any founder out there, your network is your biggest asset.
Amazing. Fantastic. Very great. All right. So rapid fire round. I'll say three words in succession, and you'll just tell me what comes to mind, right? So you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Africa.
So much potential, man.
Entrepreneurship.
So much ego.
You're living in the Bay Area, so you're swimming in it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So final one is 2030.
Things gonna be quite different for Africa. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Fantastic, Mr. Nader. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It's just been an exciting, energizing way to finish my Friday, and for you to start your Friday, hopefully.
Awesome.
But yeah, thanks for coming to the Chinyamaji podcast, man.
Likewise. Really appreciate your thoughtful questions, Mark. Appreciate it.